Mr. Bailiff, if you'll show the jury in, please.
All right. All jurors present.
There you go. Be seated, please. Would the state call its next witness, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Next witness is Kristin Cullen.
Good morning. Would you raise your right hand and be sworn in by the clerk, please?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony that you will be able to do the truth and the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat and kind of adjust the microphone so you can speak into it. And then I'm going to ask you to state your name and then spell your name for the court reporter.
Of course. My name is Kristin Cullen, Kristin.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may do so.
Thank you. Ms. Cullen, in July 19th of 2023, what job did you have at that point?
I was a medical legal death investigator with the 8th Judicial Circuit.
And what
the
exactly?
Examiner's Office.
I'm sorry. Thank you. What exactly is that?
So, medical legal death investigation is under the Medical Examiner's Office. We're tasked with recording the events surrounding and leading up to a death for individuals that fall or may fall under the jurisdiction of the medical examiner, so unattended, unplanned deaths.
Can you tell the jury your educational experience?
Of course. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Florida, and I majored in forensic anthropology and entomology, so bugs and bones.
And can you tell the jury your work experience?
Of course. I started with the Medical Examiner's Office in 2007 as an unpaid internship, and then in 2008 I started doing autopsy, and I moved into investigations in 2011 and stayed there until August of this year.
Roughly, Ms. Cullen, how many autopsies have you been involved in your career working with the Medical Examiner's Office? I know that was for quite a while, but just roughly.
Hundreds? I don't have a count because
okay. But it would be in the hundreds.
Yeah, it's a wide area.
Okay.
Hundreds or thousands.
Okay. Let me take you to specifically July 19th of 2023.
Yes.
Did you receive a call from the Baker County Sheriff's Office?
I did.
And who did you receive a call from?
I don't have my ROI in front of me. It was a detective who was recorded in my ROI. I apologize.
Was it Detective Dougherty?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do once you received that call?
I logged the basic information into our computer to generate a case number, and I proceeded to Ed Frazier Memorial Hospital.
And did you meet with Detective Dougherty when you got to the hospital?
I did.
Can you describe to the jury what you saw when you got to the hospital?
So in the exam room, it was the first exam room, was the decedent who was on a hospital bed. She was covered, and I proceeded to take photos and record what I was seeing, where she was, and to also speak with the detective.
What would you say was your initial synopsis when you first arrived?
In terms of the decedent's appearance?
Yes.
Okay. She didn't have any trauma. There were no bruises, even those kind of typical for an older baby. There was no obvious injuries, and she had livor mortis, which is the shifting of the blood after death. The blood pools where somebody lays because it's not flowing through the body. And she did not have rigor mortis, which is the stiffening of the muscle fibers. So that was not present. So that told me this was pretty recent. And she was very warm, very hot to the touch, which is incredibly unusual.
Can you explain to the jury what is mottled liver mortis?
Of course. So the mottled appearance, a better word might be splotchy. It's not really a fixed border, and that's reasonable because the child had been moved by EMS and, hospital workers trying to save her life. So that appearance is expected.
And where did you observe mottled liver mortis, specifically on the child's body?
So specifically, I apologize, I don't have my report in front of me.
That's okay.
I had it electronically and we were told not to put those there. So around the borders where, so for instance, if somebody died sitting, I'm sitting, you might find the pooling in a downward position, maybe in my legs. So towards the top of where those pooling areas would be pretty well defined. You'd have a border of pink versus white, in her case because she's of lighter skin, where you would see the settling. So in those splotchy areas, it would be a little bit more patterned, more dappled or splotchy or mottled. Does that make sense? And those were consistent with her having been seated. So she was told to me to have been in a baby seat. And then where those were kind of shifting is consistent with somebody had moved her within X amount of time.
So what you observed was consistent with the child being, would you say, slightly reclined in a seated position, like from the car seat?
Yes.
And you said that the child felt unusually hot to the touch.
She was very hot to the touch, which is very unusual because a small child's body cools quickly. And very often they're not warm at all. They're more cool or even cold by the time we come onto scene, sometimes an hour or so later. So for this child to be physically hot to the touch was very unusual.
What did you do next, Miss Cullen?
So I removed her. She was covered by a sheet, which is standard in her hospital bed, and I removed that. I photographed her in place, and then I photographed her on her front and her back, and I moved her clothing as was reasonable to look for any other, to see where the pattern continued. I did not remove her clothing, but just where it was in situ to see if there were any obvious injuries and to look for that livor mortis pattern to see if it was consistent and record it for the doctor.
What did you do next, Miss Cullen?
So when I was done recording and speaking with the detective and the hospital staff, I took my findings and left to go back to the medical examiner's office to write everything up. I did not take the decedent's body with me. I was told that the family wanted to say goodbye so that there were additional procedures.
And so the body would have been transported later?
Yes. Normally we do take it, but sometimes these things happen and it's very reasonable.
Did you have any other involvement in this case?
No.
Your Honor, I think that's all I have. I tender the witness if the defense has questions.
Cross?
Does have no questions.
Okay. Can this witness be excused?
Yes, she can be excused.
Very well. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.